بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والليل إذا يغشى والنهار إذا تجلى وما خلق الذكر والأنثى إن سعيكم لشتى فأما من أعطى واتقى وصدق بالحسنى فسنيسره لليسرى وأما من بخل واستغنى وكذب بالحسنى فسنيسره للعسرى.
Dr. Bilal Philips, Abu Amina Bilal Philips as he is known in the international world. He's been to India quite a number of times. I think, if I'm right, he is here in Chennai for the third time. He has been to Kerala one time before that. He was born in Jamaica, but grew up in Canada, where he accepted Islam in 1972. He completed a diploma in Arabic and a BA from the College of Islamic Disciplines at the University of Medina in 1979. At the University of Riyadh College of Education, he completed MA in Islamic Theology in 1985. And in the Department of Islamic Studies at the University of Wales, he completed a PhD in Islamic Theology in 1994. Dr. Abu Amina taught Islamic education and Arabic in private schools in Riyadh for over 10 years. And for 3 years, he lectured M.Ed students in the Islamic Studies Department of Sharif Kabuson Islamic University in Cotabato City, Mindanao, Philippines. Since 1994, he has founded and directed the Islamic Information Center in Dubai, UAE, which is now known as Discover Islam, and the Foreign Literature Department of Dar al-Fatah Islamic Press in Sharjah, UAE. In the year 2001, Dr. Bilal Philips established the Islamic Online University, offering accredited courses in Islamic studies to students around the world. He was a professor of Arabic and Islamic studies at the American University in Dubai, Ajman University of Ajman, UAE. Currently, he is with Qatar Guest Center in Doha, and he's been there for 2 years now, if I'm right. Inshallah, tonight's topic of In Search of Inner Peace. To introduce the topic tonight, we are going to discuss a topic Muslims have forgotten a long time ago. And the worst thing is, we have left the Quran and Sunnah and looked into other religious practices like yoga and other similar practices in search of inner peace. Inshallah, Dr. Abu Amina Bilal Philips will be discussing the Quran, this aspect of peace from the Quran and Sunnah, and how to attain inner peace that we have ignored. Now I request Dr. Abu Amina Bilal Philips to deliver the speech.
Alhamdulillah, wassalatu wassalamu ala Rasulillah. All praise is due to Allah, and may Allah's peace and blessings be on the last messenger of Allah. As my brother introduced the topic, the search for inner peace, it is a topic which is not particular to Muslims. It is one which all human beings are involved in, regardless of their backgrounds, religious, racial, regional, national, regardless of their age. There is a search that all human beings engage in throughout their lives, trying to find a state of inner peace. Now, human beings have tried a variety of different channels. Music is the popular channel today for attaining inner peace. I remember some students used to tell me that I can't study without listening to music. My mind is not at peace, so that I can absorb the material I'm studying without having my earphones on and listening to the latest tunes. Other people go to drugs to find that state of inner peace. Others get involved in meditation. They may go to marriage, through their jobs. People become workaholics, absorb themselves in their work as a means of finding a sense of fulfillment, contentment, and what we refer to as inner peace. Some, unable to find it within themselves, try to find it through their children. See through the success of their children in their education, etc., that they receive from their success a sense of fulfillment and inner peace. In our time, we could say that the media, the global village that we live in, promotes the idea that technology, modernization, will produce for us physical comfort, and from those creature comforts we would find peace. Whether it's in the vacation we take after working so many years of our lives, we finally retire and go on that vacation, we can find that sense of peace. Or we have enough money to take a plane to Switzerland or to wherever in the world that one may enjoy. This should provide for it. However, if we look at the most industrialized country in the world today, America, we find there that some 20 million adult Americans suffer from depression yearly. 20 million. Which is the leading cause of disability from depression. What is depression? Depression is a total lack of inner peace. Furthermore, in the year 2000, statistics show that death due to suicide was twice that of AIDS. AIDS is the thing that we hear about all the time. AIDS in the third world spreading rapidly, and in America where it started, you know, this is the big thing. People are dying from it. Though there are other diseases, sexually transmitted diseases like herpes, nobody talks about it anymore. But back in the 70s, they said it had reached epidemic proportions. Nobody speaks about it anymore. One in every 3 Americans is known to have herpes. In England, it's 1 in every 4. And this is an incurable disease, but nobody talks about it anymore because AIDS kills. Herpes doesn't kill you, but it makes life very uncomfortable. But in spite of the focus that is put on AIDS, twice as many people die from AIDS, die from suicide. Twice as many people kill themselves, decide to take their lives, than actually die from AIDS in America. So what is this telling us? This is telling us that suicide, which is a complete lack of inner peace. A person has found this world life no longer worth living. I want to leave this life. I want to get out of here. I want to find peace elsewhere. That is one of the biggest killers in America today. In fact, more people die from suicide than from homicide. Homicide is people killing each other with guns, knives, everything else. More people die from suicide in America than die from homicide. And the homicide rates are massive. So what is this telling us? This is telling us that modern technology is not going to produce inner peace. No matter how comfortable we make life, we've got air conditioners now, we've got cars, airplanes, transportation is much easier, beds are more comfortable, food is more easily prepared. Everything that has seemed to make life so much easier than it was 100 years ago, 500 years ago. But people are further from inner peace than they were. Go back 100 years. Listen to our grandparents speak about life, and you will hear something of inner peace in their lives that you can't hear today. And they weren't involved in the things that we're involved in today to try to find it. So we need to make a distinction between personal pleasure and inner peace. Because if we look at the various things that people are trying to find inner peace through, whether it's drugs, music, meditation, these things give us a temporary sense of pleasure. We feel good for a moment, but it doesn't last. So inner peace is not that. That is pleasure. Pleasure comes, it goes, it comes and goes. Inner peace is a sense of stability and contentment which carries us through the various ups and downs of life. Because if we talk about peace, we want to try to find peace. And we look at the various definitions which are given of peace. Freedom from war or civil strife. This is happening around the world all the time. Freedom from public disturbance or disorder. This is happening in our societies all the time. Freedom from disagreements or quarrels. This is happening in our homes all the time. Calm, quiet, and tranquility. Well, there were some islands off India that were very calm, quiet, and tranquil until the wave came. It happens for a while and it goes. So where is the peace that we are seeking? Even the child, we say, perhaps maybe before we come into this world, there will be a state of peace. The child in the womb, free from the problems of the world around himself or herself. Inside of the womb, the child, protected. Is that child at peace? Well, any mother who reaches the stage where the child starts moving will tell you that child is not at peace. He's elbowing, he's kicking, yeah. And she's suffering from it. He seems to be uneasy inside. He wants to get out. So where is the peace then? The peace that we're seeking has to come in the midst of the struggle. Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told us, لَقَدْ خَلَقْنَا الْإِنسَانَ فِي كَبَدٍ. I have created human beings in a state of toil and struggle. That's the nature of our lives. We're in toil and struggle, ups and downs. Times of difficulty, times of ease. This is the nature of our lives. So, peace has to be found, inner peace has to be found within the midst of the struggle. If we can find it, then that is the real inner peace that we all need, that all human beings are struggling and striving for. To achieve that, logically, we must remove the obstacles from that state. If it is achievable, we don't have it, there must be things which are preventing us from having it. These are the obstacles which we need to remove. So we need to develop a strategy for achieving inner peace. We can't just expect it to just descend from the sky one day on us. We wake up in the morning and now I have inner peace. As much as we might wish for it, we might desire it, it's not going to happen just like that. We have to develop a strategy. We have to develop a plan to achieve it. As they say, if you fail to plan, you plan to fail. If you fail to plan a way to achieve that inner peace, you will fail. You will not achieve it. You will get pleasure through the drugs, through the music, through meditation, through your family, through your work, through nice foods, etc., etc. But you won't attain inner peace. So, What is our strategy? What do we need to do? First step to achieve inner peace, dealing with our obstacles, is that we must identify what the obstacles are. If we don't identify the obstacles, how can we remove them? How can we deal with them? So they must be identified. Secondly, after identifying them, we must accept them within ourselves. What do I mean? I mean that if we are in a state of denial, though we have identified the obstacles, we can't remove them. For example, one of the big obstacles, one of the most obvious obstacles to inner peace is anger. As the Prophet ﷺ said to the man who came and asked him, what is the way for me to get to paradise? He said, La taghdab. Don't get angry. La taghdab. Do not get angry. Control that anger. It's not good. It is something which disturbs us internally, and it will disturb us externally. Something to avoid. So, if we agree, yes, anger is a definite, major obstacle to inner peace. But you say after that, but I don't get angry. You know, I'm not an angry person. But in reality, the slightest problem develops and you explode. You can't see yourself. You think, I'm not angry, I'm just responding to things. Right? But no, you're getting angry. So if you can't identify, if you cannot accept that anger is your problem, then how can you deal with it? So, as we said, first step, identify the obstacles, know them, and then recognize them within ourselves. Now, if we were to list all of the various areas of obstacles, all the various obstacles, we find there are many. There are many. Our lives are cluttered with them. There are personal problems within our individual lives. There are family issues that we find ourselves involved in. Financial dilemmas. Financial dilemmas. I just read in the newspaper here that there is a rise in the rate of suicide amongst women because of financial issues. Financial dilemmas. Work pressures. At work, the pressure on you to produce. Your boss doesn't like the product that you're producing. Demands from you more than you're able to produce. All the kind of, you can't find peace in that kind of an environment. Spiritual confusion, where you don't understand the revelation that has come. We're practicing Islam according to ritual, custom. My parents were Muslims, they did it this way, and that's how I'm doing it. But this is spiritual confusion. Because Islam, for Muslims, Islam is submission to the will of God. Can you inherit submission? No. So it means that if we are understanding Islam as being something inherited from generation to generation, then we are in a state of spiritual confusion. So we can't find the inner peace that is behind all of this. So, the best thing to do when we look at all of these areas of confusion and problems is to lump them into categories, two basic categories, in order to be able to deal with them effectively. The first category is the category of things which we cannot change. In our lives, there are things which cause us problems, but we can't change them. We're not able to change them. We're born that way. We're short. We're born short. But this world, if you're tall, a lot of things happen for you. Doors open for you. If you're short, you're not considered to be appropriate. You can't get the job no matter how you get your nice coat and your tie and everything, but you're just too short. Now, people just don't look at you the same way they look at somebody who's tall. They always talk about tall, dark, and handsome, right? You know, tall wins the race, right? But can you do anything about that? You can't. You know. Similarly, for women, women actually suffer the most in this area, where the image of the woman who is desirable, you know, is created by the media, and then all the other women have to try to fit into this picture. They choose a minority of people who look like this, and then they want everybody else to look like that. So women will spend so much time in their lives trying to change this and to change that to make themselves fit into that mold. One of the most obvious things is the high-heeled shoes, for example, right? The woman who is shorter, she wants to look taller, so she gets high-heeled shoes. And the doctors will say, yes, the high-heeled shoe, it's bad for your knee, it's bad for your hip, it does this, it does that. But no, she's still going to stick her foot in that shoe and try to walk around. And walking in high-heeled shoes, you have to learn, because it's like walking on stilts. You know, because your body naturally wants to fall to one side or to the other. You have to learn to balance and walk on these things like this. You know, all of this to try to fit into that mold. Whereas that's not how we were created. And human beings also. A person may be born, like myself, black, in a world which favors white. You know, this is the world if you're white, because who rules the world? The white race in general, if we can call it a race. But white human beings, whether Americans, Europeans, whatever, rule the world. So they set the standard for beauty, the standard for criterion for those who should be successful and those who aren't. And white becomes a factor. And it happened here in India too, when the Aryans came from the north and they conquered the country, and Dravidians in the south who were black. You know, they ended up where? As the Shudras, the bottom of the barrel. Right? So it happened here too. Conquerors identify themselves as being the best. Right? So now if you're born in that world and you're not white, what do? Well, if you're Michael Jackson, you might try and turn yourself into white. But what happened to him? He made a mess. Right? He didn't make things better for himself. He made it worse. Right? So we have to learn to accept certain things which are according to God's destiny. God has destined that this is how you are. You're short, you're black, you're fat, and all these different things. And you live in that world. You accept these things. You can't change this. If you can put those aside, then that's a huge area that you can be at peace with yourself. You can accept yourself as you are. Then you need to focus on the area of things that you can change. These are the areas which to the largest degree end up being personal things, things about ourselves. Like the anger we spoke about earlier. This is something that we can change. So we should focus on those types of areas. Those various negative characteristics that we have, we need to address them. Identify them, address them, and strive to correct them. So for the angry person, for example, he has no patience, or she has no patience, cannot be patient with things. The solution for anger is patience. Some people say, but some people are born patient. How to become patient? You know, that's just the way I am. If that's going to be your attitude, you will never achieve inner peace. You can't do it. Patience is critical to inner peace. Control of anger and the other things that come along with it. So how then can we achieve patience? Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he said in Sahih Bukhari, وَمَن يَتَصَبَّرْ يُصَبِّرْهُ اللَّهُ. Whoever pretends to be patient with a desire to be patient, Allah will give him patience. So it is something achievable. Yes, some people seem to be born patient, but the rest of us can learn it. It is something learnable. وَمَن يَتَصَبَّرْ. Whoever pretends to be patient. Circumstance happens, you swallow it, you hold it. You don't explode. Externally, you appear to be calm and patient. Inside, you're exploding. Now, in the past, they used to tell us that it is better to let it all hang out. They used to tell us that. If you're angry, don't hold it inside of yourself, because it's going to happen, it's going to express itself in other negative ways, which may be harmful behavior. So better get it off your chest. That's what they said. Get it off your chest. Let it all hang out. You're angry, just explode. Afterwards, you feel good. I got that off my chest. Recently, the medical profession said, no, actually, it's not good. Because they found that when people exploded, blood vessels in the brain popped. Burst. Blood vessels in the brain would burst, because, you know, when you get out there, you're screaming at the top of your lungs. You see it. You can see all your veins coming up, everything. Some of the blood vessels in the brain burst. So it's not good. It's not good. This is harmful. Hold it better. The Prophet ﷺ, 1,400 years ago, he told us, hold it. This goes back to trust in Allah. That whatever happens to us, whatever the circumstance, know that it is by the destiny of Allah in our lives. Now, how we deal with that destiny determines whether it has benefited us or it has not. If we're able to be patient with it, believing that ultimately, at the end of it all, there is good, then we have benefited. Then we can find that degree of contentment. And the Prophet ﷺ had said in the Quran to us, in Surah Ar-Ra'd, "Ala bi dhikrillahi tatma'inna al-qulub." It is only with the remembrance of Allah that hearts find rest. This is the ultimate solution. By remembering Allah, the hearts find rest. In the times of difficulty, in the times of anger, in the times of temptation, it is by the remembrance of Allah that hearts will find rest. Remembrance of Allah meaning dhikrullah. Ala bi dhikrillahi tatma'inna al-qulub. Dhikrullah, let us not misunderstand it according to the customary understanding, according to the confused understanding that dhikrullah means sitting in a dark room saying Allah, 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 Allah. This is not dhikrullah. Yes, there are people selling us this, telling us that if you do this, this is going to happen and that is going to happen. It's going to benefit us this way and that way. But believe me, brothers and sisters, it will not benefit us at all. If your name is Tariq and somebody came in front of you and just said, Tariq, 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 what are you going to think? You're going to say, hey, is there something you want? Is there something you need? Could you just tell me? You know? But he just keeps saying, Tariq, 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 Tariq. We say this person has lost his mind. It's not a person who has got a, his mind is there, he's lost it. He's just, record is broken, he's just stuck on the spot there. Tariq, Tariq, Tariq. Because this is not what the Prophet ﷺ taught us. When he taught us any of Allah's names to be used in remembrance of Allah, it is in some meaningful sentence. We're calling on Allah. Not just Allah's name repeated over and over again. He never taught that. Somebody else came up with that. Not the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So remembrance of Allah for us are meaningful acts and statements, either as sentences that we say to remind us of our sins, to reflect on Allah's greatness, or to live in our lives. Remembrance of Allah should be expressed in all aspects of our lives. As Allah said, قُلْ إِنَّ صَلَاتِي وَنُسُكِي وَمَحْيَاي وَمَمَاتِي لِلَّهِ رَبِّ الْعَالَمِينَ. Say, indeed, my prayers, my sacrifices, my living and my dying are for Allah, the Lord of all the worlds. So my whole life should be one of remembrance of Allah. The salah, Allah tells us in the Quran, أَقِمِ الصَّلَاةَ لِذِكْرِي, establish the prayer for my remembrance. So if it means we're doing this traditional prayer, where we stand up, we say Allahu Akbar, and by the time our hands reaches our chest, we're saying Allahu Akbar and going into ruku'. And I think you all know what kind of salah we're talking about here. The one you finish in 1 minute, and somebody asks you afterwards, what surah did you recite after Fatiha? And you can't even remember, did I recite Fatiha? No. This kind of prayer, which most of us are doing, this is not the one which Allah prescribed for remembrance of Himself. That is just exercise we do. You know, like the Hindus have yoga exercises, stretching and these things. Well, we have these exercises we do, we bow and that's what we're doing. We have turned the salah, which was supposed to be remembrance of Allah, bringing us closer to Allah, into physical exercises like yoga. So, our search for inner peace involves clearing away the obstacles from our lives. And these obstacles, when you look into them in general, we can see that what is at the core of them are in fact sins. Revelation has identified in the various areas of our lives where we have problems and obstacles, that these obstacles are really sins. Sins identified in the Quran, sins identified by Prophet Muhammad ﷺ in the Sunnah, sins which are known to the world. Which is why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the Quran, when He speaks about the Muslim nation, He said, Kuntum khayra ummatin ukhrijat lin-nas. You're the best of nations taken out from among humankind, for humankind. Ta'muruna bil ma'ruf, because you command the good. The term good in Arabic actually is the known, al-ma'ruf. Ta'muruna bil ma'ruf. You call to what is known as good by all human beings. So what Islam calls to is not unique. It is the good which is known by all human beings in themselves. As Allah said when He created human beings, He said, فَأَلْهَمَهَا فُجُورَهَا وَتَقْوَهَا. Every soul is given a knowledge of fujur, corruption, wa taqwa, piety, goodness. So when we go back, as I said, into the obstacles, we'll find ultimately that the essence of the obstacles lie in sins. Because sins produce darkness in our hearts. And there's a well-known statement by Ibn Abbas I'd like to quote to you, in which he said, Ibn Abbas being one of the close companions of the Prophet ﷺ, known as the commentator of the Quran, righteous deeds appear as brightness in the face, light in the heart, blessing in provisions, and love in the hearts of people for the person. Whereas sin results in gloom in the face, darkness in the heart, a decrease in provision, weakness in the body, and dislike in people's hearts for Him. That removal of sins from our lives, in all of the various areas, whether it's in our families, in our job circumstances, in our communities around us, etc., this will remove also from our hearts the major obstacles to inner peace. one who is clearly on the path of Islam, the path which leads to Allah, the creator of the worlds. That is one who has freed himself from the corruptive influences of sins and the obstacles that they produce in our lives. So my brothers and sisters, this evening, it is just for me to remind you, and this is just a reminder, that the search that we all experience, the quest that we all are on, is an inner quest, which will only find fulfillment. It will only be realized, achieved, through remembrance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And that is what Islam is. That is the essence of Islam. Islam, we said, was submission to the will of God. And that was the message of all of the prophets. Submit ourselves to the will of God. The practices of Islam all call us to that submission. There are all various ways and means to help us in that submission. Where we accept Islam truly in our hearts as that way of life, then it will empower us to deal with the various obstacles that we spoke about, the obstacles to inner peace. We have to have some support, some divine revelation, some guidance in order to achieve that state. On our own, we can't do it. As we said, Western society is one which said, leave religion aside. This is the global community. Leave religion aside. Secularism is what we should be about. In rejecting God and revelation, then they strayed far away from inner peace. And instead, substitutes came. Instead of remembrance of God, which would produce the inner peace, substitutes were used. One of the biggest substitutes we spoke about earlier was music. So music is everywhere. And I'm sure we're all living it in here. If we ever turn on the television, you know, it is just music, music, music. In the West, music is everywhere. You go in the elevator, music is there. You go into the doctor's office, music is there. You go into the shopping center, music is there. Everywhere. Bombarded constantly. That is because the true source of inner peace has been removed. Remembrance of God, religion, turning back to God. This has been, that door has been closed. So people become obsessed with trying to find it through other means. As we said, they will not achieve it through these other means. We will not achieve it through these other means. The only way is to come back to Islam. Sincerely, to commit ourselves to Islam, sincerely, to become real. Because without that commitment, we're not real. We're going through motions which do not distinguish us from those who have chosen other paths or inherited other paths. We have to put aside the delusion that simply because we're Muslims, we will inherit the better life to come. No. Only true Muslims, only individuals who truly submit themselves to Allah, to God, will find peace in this life and the next. And as some scholars said, if you can't find that element of paradise in this life, because paradise is the ultimate peace, where we are in no conflict with anything. Whatever we desire happens. We live in a life where we are in complete harmony with our environment. If we can't achieve a portion of that in this life, within our hearts, within ourselves, then we won't achieve it in the next. And that's why the Prophet ﷺ said, "Ad-dunya sijnul mu'min wa jannatul kafir." That this world is a prison for the believers, paradise for the disbelievers. So if we're seeking our paradise here, externally, through the material trappings, then we will lose the inner paradise necessary to achieve the greater paradise in the life to come. And this I close my presentation with for your reflection, asking Allah to help us all come back to His remembrance, to make our lives lives of remembrance of God, where we live His commands, where we do what is pleasing to Him, which will ultimately give us that inner peace. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.